I mentioned just mere seconds ago, our friend Javier Manjarres is here.
You gotta roll the R's better than that.
I'm working on those R's.
Okay.
So, we're working on the R's. We're also working on a troubling story out of Ferguson, Missouri.
Right.
We'll get to Alan Dershowitz and the Rick
Right.
Perry story a bit later. The efforts to deal with crowd control and law enforcement seem to be in vain. I guess the governor's called in the National Guard.
Right.
What's your take on what's going on in Ferguson?
We discussed the other day with our amigo Rick Unger up in New York, and he thought that he was happy to see the Highway Patrol deal with it because he thought they did a better job. Well, guess what? The riot police from the day prior, before the Highway Patrol took over, they were right about it. Look, the Highway Patrol had to don their bright gear because the riots continued a day later after the Highway Patrol took over. So what's going to happen? Look, these people, this is who these people are. They want to riot, they want to loot. You need to put in quote unquote militarized police in there to calm the situation. It's unfortunate.
Someone who joins us now and who has talked about really the role of police in our society and who deals with legal questions for us on Newsmax TV in a program we call You and the Law is Harvard Law School professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor Dershowitz, we welcome you back on this Monday morning to America's Forum.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Alan, let's shift topics. We can always get back to Ferguson, but you made news over the weekend as you analyzed what was going on with Rick Perry and his indictment down in Texas. Any information come in that has strengthened the position you've taken? Or for people who may not know where you are on this, why don't you share with everyone your concerns about what's going on down in Texas?
Well, I'm a liberal Democrat. No way I would ever vote for Rick Perry. I don't approve of his views on most matters, certainly on social matters. I don't particularly like the way he's used his veto power. Were I a Texas voter, I'd probably vote against him. But the idea of indicting him because he threatened to veto spending unless a district attorney who was caught drinking and driving resigned, that's not anything for a criminal indictment. That's a political issue. If you don't like his use of veto, vote against him. The statutes, the two statutes under which he was indicted, are reminiscent of the old Soviet Union. Abuse of authority. In the Soviet Union, if a person was deposed from office, they would immediately be indicted, and that's what happens in totalitarian societies. But in the United States of America, we don't arrest people and indict people because the other party thinks they abuse their office. Everybody in the Republican side is now accusing Obama of abusing his office. Democrats abused Cheney and Bush of abusing their office. That's what politics is all about. And the idea of coercing a public official, has Texas ever heard of lobbying? That's what lobbying is all about. If you don't support our bill, we'll not contribute next time to your campaign. That's not the basis for what a criminal charge should be. Criminal charges should be based on violating clear statutes that are criminal in nature. This is political in nature, and that's why I'm so opposed to it.
Javier, we're going to get your take on it in just a second, but why don't we hear from the man who has been indicted, Texas Governor Rick Perry. Here's what he had to say.
When you look at the video, not only of the stop, you look at the video of Ms. Lindbergh when she was being booked into the county jail, the abusiveness, she was kicking on the door, she was abusing the law officials, she had to be restrained. And when you look at that, and you have to make a decision on whether or not $7.5 million of Texas taxpayer money is going to go to the unit that she oversees, I very clearly, I very publicly said that as long as that individual was going to be running that agency, I had lost confidence in her, the public had lost confidence in her, and I did what every governor has done for decades.
Rick Perry yesterday on Fox News Sunday, giving his version of it and his take on it politically. We'll get back to Professor Dershowitz in a second about a matter of law and conduct of county prosecutors, attorneys who are elected to office. But Javier, judging the politics of this, last hour, Joyce Kaufman, the noted talk show host, says this is all going to work to the advantage of Rick Perry politically. Do you think that's true?
Well, I agree with both Mr. Dershowitz and Joyce. It is, because this is a witch hunt. This is obviously, it's a vendetta on her part. They're going after him. They're trying to see what sticks against the political wall. They know he's running for president. They want to muck up the political waters with him. This is going to work in his favor. I agree, because there's no downside to this for him. He's just they're going after him for something ridiculous because of what he did. And what he did was right. And I agree with Governor Rick Perry, who's a great guy, good friend of mine.
Well, we're going to go back to what Governor Perry was referring to in that interview on Fox News Sunday, the booking of the county prosecutor on dealing with a situation where she appears to be inebriated, shall we say. Here's the way it looked. Let's take, and we'll hear the words, and then we'll get Alan Dershowitz to weigh in.
Get these cuffs off my arms.
Okay, as long as you're making threats, though, they're not going to come
I'm
off.
not making any threats.
You just threatened that they were
I
going to
didn't
be in
threaten
jail.
anybody.
Do you know what you're doing? Call Greg. I don't care if you film me.
Okay.
Call Greg. What's wrong with you people? Get the cuffs off of me now.
Are we done for a moment?
Get them off.
Just need to get soap.
Just get them off. Call Greg. Did you call Greg? I'm not drunk. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't in.
Okay, but you've been arrested for DWI.
That's y'all's problem. Not
Well, that's the video, and we got it there from one of the FM stations in Texas, which has been using it really as almost parody. But Alan Dershowitz, for you, since we so often talk about prosecutorial misconduct or questions about that in the courtroom, what about politically, just as a citizen, Ms. Limburg there being booked into jail, her responses and all that has gone on with her case?
Well, I understand Governor Perry saying a woman like that should not hold public office, should not be in charge of investigations. It seemed to me like that's the right decision. I remember we had a case in Massachusetts years ago where a judge was making all kinds of bigoted and racist statements, and the governor initially said, well, we'll suspend them for a while, and a number of us put enormous pressure on the governor. No, remove him from office, get him out. And the governor ultimately did that. And so I can easily understand why the governor would want to terminate her role as a prosecutor. Now, there may be more to this than that. It may be that he wanted her out of office because she was investigating some of his people. That's politics. And it should be resolved in the political context, not in the criminal justice context.
I see this taking place in Texas, in the same county, if I'm not mistaken, where Tom DeLay was brought up on charges. Javier, to the political angle on this, does the left believe it can find a compliant press or drive home a message to take out conservative Republicans via indictment like this, especially there in Texas?
Well, yeah, that county and every other country around the country. Anyone who will listen, there's media out there that will run with this. They will. They're going to find a friendly prosecutor, friendly judge who will, one of these, maybe a Obama-appointed liberal judge that may think there's a case here. Again, the picture of the woman in restraints in the jail cell speaks volumes. There's a reason why she was in restraints. That speaks volumes of her.
Alan, I served with Tom DeLay. I can recall the debate in Congress with so-called McCain-Feingold campaign finance reform, where technical violations of dealing with the way money was contributed to campaigns, we heard from attorneys, hey, they've just criminalized fundraising. Is this slippery slope really taken off now in a variety of different ways?
Well, I hope it's limited to Texas at the moment. I mean, I was also outraged at the DeLay indictment. Again, as a liberal Democrat, obviously I was not a DeLay supporter, but I care deeply about the integrity of our legal system. Just a couple of years ago, I defended the former president of the Ukraine, who was charged with a made up charge after he was deposed from office by his political opponents. I've been involved in these kinds of cases all over the world, and I just hate to see it come to the United States of America. And I hate to see Texas apparently leading the way in criminalizing it. Something like this is going on right now in New York as well, as they're investigating a former district attorney who was defeated for office. You don't criminalize policy differences and party differences. You leave the criminal law for very, very clear violations of very well articulated statutes, so the person knows in advance that they're crossing the line into criminality. There is no way that Governor Perry ever thought that he would be crossing the line into criminality when he threatened to veto, which is a constitutional power that the governor has, or that Congressman DeLay did when he did what he did. These are not areas that are appropriately resolved in the criminal justice system. We have enough real criminals out there murdering and raping and robbing who should be subject to the criminal justice system, not political differences like this.
Alan Dershowitz, you mentioned the use of the grand jury in the indictments limited to Texas, but there have been other cases where charges have been made, perhaps to influence the courtroom of public opinion.
Yeah.
Chris Christie in New Jersey, the so-called Bridgegate scandal, which may have, quite frankly, taken its toll on his presidential aspirations.
That's political. I mean, the political opposition there, and that's appropriate to object to what Christie did politically, and bring him in the forefront of political criticism. You can be on both sides of that, but I would not myself favor indictment in a case like that as well.
Well, it was curious too in the state of Wisconsin. Republican Governor Scott Walker, there was a probe going on. It was a situation where you can say that it appeared the legal process was being used, no indictment, but the way the investigation was sold by those in opposition to Governor Scott Walker, there appeared to be the criminalization or injecting politics or the legal process into politics.
Right. We saw it in Alaska with Senator Stevens. I think we saw it in Virginia right now. We are seeing it. It's beginning to spread, and that's why it's so important to put a stop to it now and to say the criminal law is reserved for real crimes, not for political differences where the party in power or out of power gets revenge against the other party. That's just not the way to use the criminal justice system. It also makes people very suspicious of criminal justice and of the legal system, and that's not a healthy thing either.
Well, let's talk about the political process. Javier, with your background, about a minute remains. Go ahead.
To add to what Mr. Dershowitz said, I agree with him, but also you see this happening with these wedge issues like abortion, like we have with gay rights. If it fails the ballot box, go to the courts. They'll fix it. That's what we're seeing, especially here in Florida now, where you have judges overturning the gay ban in Florida. We've seen it all over the country.
Well, that will be another topic, a related topic that we'll take up in the not too distant future. For now, Professor Alan Dershowitz joining us by phone. We thank you very much for your input. We'll continue to take a look at what you're calling the criminalization of politics and get your take on that in the days ahead. Javier Manjarres, as always, we appreciate your insights and analysis. I'll work on rolling the R's.
Yeah, we're going to have to take it to class for that.
All right, well, rolling...
Maybe Alan can help you with that.
That's right. We'll all work it out. Again, to Alan Dershowitz, to Javier Manjarres, we thank you, and we will be continuing here on America's Forum on a very busy Monday. More on the Rick Perry situation, more on what transpired in Ferguson, Missouri over the weekend, more in terms of the troubling developments in Iraq. Just some of the stories we continue to cover on America's Forum here on Newsmax TV.